An amazing good morning to you. Welcome to this podcast, Autoimmune Life and Me, with me, Louise Usher. There's so much I've got to tell you, and I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for being here. Good morning. It is an early Sunday morning here in January in Kent, in the United Kingdom. I know loads of you are listening from the other side of the world, and welcome to all of you. It's amazing to have you here. So there's a few different things on this podcast this week, and I'm so excited to share with you because we have some incredible news. Let me tell you what we're going to do on this podcast this week. So we've got some incredible news which will then lead me into telling you about what we're going to speak about on this podcast this week, because we're going to step into talking about Crohn's disease and how you live with it, the lived experience, all of that kind of thing, what I do for my kind of researchy sort of work, what strand that comes under, and how you can get involved if you wanted to. Also, I'm going to apologise for the the ticking clock. Listen, you can probably hear that. I've changed things up today because I'll tell you about the winter and the scene that I've got in front of me in a second, and that will make sense with that. And also, I want to say thank you to those of you that have reached out to me. I am so thrilled to hear from you and to hear that this podcast has made a massive difference to you. However, slightly put me under pressure, as well as the other amazing news that's happened this week. So let's begin, let's dive in. And what I'm hoping that you'll get from this podcast is a little bit of insight into how different we all are with our things that we're dealing with in life, and how that affects us, how we manage it, and how it's okay to be different. Okay, so at the end of this podcast, I'm hoping that that's what you're going to feel, and that you feel better. If you do, and you feel it's been helpful, please do consider clicking those 5 stars to give me a review on whatever platform you're listening on, just so that we can help spread the word and hopefully dive into being more helpful with more people. Actually, that's brought me on to another point that I wasn't going to put in this podcast, but I've just remembered I'm going to. I'm reading a new book, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's called Being Helpful. It's not called that. Is it called that? I think it might be called that. I should go get it so I can give you some quotes and read the blurb. In fact, let me go do that in a second. And I thought, how can I be helpful? How can I serve? I really love that. I really love to give and to help other people. And sometimes, scientific knowledge can sit on the fence, can't it? There's, evidence for, there's evidence against. But what I can do is to help you feel that whatever your journey is, whatever route you're on, is the one that's okay. A bit of self-acceptance, a bit of your experience. But first things first, let me tell you about something I discovered the other day. So, I don't know how it came up, but I was searching for something about myself on Safari, which is my platform that I use on my computer. And it popped up and it said that my podcast is in the top 15 Crohn's disease podcasts of 2025 that you must listen to. I was like, whoa, really? Now, I don't know where this came from, but it's a company called FeedSpot. I've had a look at them, and they've got a bit of a platform on LinkedIn, which is obviously the place to be if you're talking about sort of worky stuff. And it sounds as though you can pay to have your platform put on there so that everybody can help find it. Now, this was on page number 1 of Google, of the search term. So I was like, that's quite a lot. That's quite impressive. And they've put me as number 4. I don't know if that's a ranking or if it's just literally the way that they've listed it. But yeah, they've put on there it says Autoimmune Diet and Me. Obviously, we've changed the name more recently to Autoimmune Life and Me, because we don't only talk about diet, and we also don't only talk about Crohn's disease. We talk about lots of different autoimmune. There's a diet called the Autoimmune Protocol. There's the SCD diet, specific carbohydrate diet. There's obviously low FODMAP. There's loads of different things that we will discuss and fors and against, and try and look at all the benefits of that. But anyway, So I was absolutely thrilled with this, and I was like, wow, because I don't actually do any promotion with this podcast. I put it out there and I let you guys discover it because I think the right people will come for that. Now, it doesn't make any money. It's not something that I do for sponsorship, although if you want to sponsor my podcast, get in touch. Of course, I'm open to discussing that if that's the right sort of relationship, but I just literally do this because I really like the sound of my own voice. No, joking. I really like trying to share an experience in an authentic way which might help or benefit somebody else, because I was diagnosed quite a few years ago now and I've lived really, really well, thankfully, but it takes work and effort and focus. And I think that people that have chronic illness can't always magic it away, but if with the right focus and the right tools, and motivation is the biggest one, you can make a difference. And I've had people reach out to me this week, which has been the first time ever. This podcast has been going for, I think it's since 2015. Did they write it on there? Yeah, since July 2015. So it's almost 10 years old, this podcast. That's crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. So I was thrilled to see that somebody's put that up there for other people to see and find out about and hopefully listen to, because it always astounds me that I don't do any promotion with this, and yet there are hundreds and hundreds of people that come and listen. So thank you if you're one of them. Thank you to FeedSpot for featuring me. And this podcast, I'm so over the moon with it. So thank you very much to all of you as well for listening. I appreciate you. And once again, if you feel that this has helped you in any way, shape or form, and you've got a cohort of people you think might benefit as well, please do share it. Please do consider sharing it. But if you want to keep it for your ears only, and I'm accompanying you in the car, on the train, on your commute or something like that, then it's lovely to be with you. So thanks again for listening. So that was the first big podcast news, which I was thrilled about. So there's some other bits and pieces, but I want to dive in to giving you something different on this podcast. So over on my TikTok, now I've got 2 different TikTok accounts, and oh goodness knows what might happen. Actually, it's going to be this coming week. Apparently there's all this saga going on, but I won't get into politics because that's not really what I do here. But yeah, hopefully you guys can have a little look at TikTok. And if you can, I have 2 accounts, but if you just search my name, which is on the name of this podcast, Louise Usher, you'll probably find both of them. So one is digging deep into travel and my journeys, where I go to places to review those. I'll talk more about that shortly. And the other one is a journal one, where I write in my journals each morning. You'll see my handwriting. There's some motivational quotes and things on there, and I just find it very therapeutic to produce those and make those, and hopefully you will as well. So I wrote a small poem this morning because I'm looking out at very, very thick frost here in the UK this morning. This is why I'm sitting in a different place, so the audio is probably somewhat different. We have the fridge next to me, which makes ice occasionally. That's probably going to make a little bit of noise now that I've said that. Got the ticking clock, oh my goodness, ticking clock. And I do have a little candle there flickering away, which occasionally might give us a little pop. But usually I will record this in my office, which is a much more soundproofed area. But I didn't want to miss this beauty of the -4 degrees outside, the grass, which is white and scattered. And if you go to see today's TikTok, which I'm about to upload, you'll see it. You'll see, because I've filmed it, and you'll see what I'm about to explain to you. The roof is actually glistening. I didn't notice that at the time because it wasn't, but now the sun's coming around slightly, it's glistening, and we've got a beautiful sunrise and a pale blue sky out there this morning. So I went out to I just need to turn my screen up slightly. So I went out in the garden to just film for TikTok, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a little bit of poetry this morning. So I'd be really interested to know from you guys, what's your therapy? What's your thing that keeps you going? I used to write a lot of poetry, and it's not something that I've done very much recently, but I do write my stories. Now, I'm going to talk more about those in a minute, but I just want to read this little poem to you that I've just put to my TikTok video, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did, just jotting down these thoughts and just, I don't know, almost felt like meditation, just looking at the things and thinking, how would I describe this? What is it that I'm looking at? And oh God, the roof of my log cabin in the back of the garden, it's got little spiky bits on top, and they're just catching the sun right now as I'm sitting here chatting with you. Amazing. Okay, let's dive into this poem. It doesn't have a name because I just literally wrote it for my TikTok. Frosty crystals in the early morning sunrise. January breath slow in the air. Pond water iced. Crunch underfoot as overdue grass stands proud. Thankful for winter, the undersold season. Glad of the snug of the indoors. Joy through the window as this day comes alive. Iced in white, the colour of new dawns. So, I loved that. I loved writing that. But what I've done there that you can maybe see if you're into this sort of thing is I've gone from outside to inside. So I was out there was my breath, there was crunchy under the foot, and then I came in and I was looking back out through the window. And I think all of these things, and just taking a moment to think about it, you're forgetting about other stuff. You're forgetting about illness, you're forgetting about pain, and you're just putting yourself in that moment. So maybe give it a try. I mean, the bit at the end, iced in white, I was like, what, if you think about the colour white, like, what is that? You know, we wear it when we're getting married. We talk about angels wearing white, you know, and I just thought the colour of new dawns. And obviously, yeah, I don't know. I just really enjoyed writing that, and I wanted to share that with you. So I would encourage you, much as we talk about sciencey bits on here sometimes as well, I would encourage you very much to try and find your thing where you might switch off for a little while and just allow yourself to go somewhere else in your mind. Because I think living with autoimmune, like I say, we're talking about Crohn's particularly on this one, because that feed spot has listed us as the top 15 Crohn's disease podcasts. So I feel I need to talk about that. But any autoimmunity that you have, you know, it can dominate your life. It can take over, and taking a moment like that to stop and breathe and just do some other sort of holistic practices, I encourage that. I really genuinely do. And I think journaling is a fantastic way. And then we could put that into then like the practicality, so that's the sort of well-being and the wellness side of things. But practicality, if you're somebody that keeps a food journal, a wellness diary, a food and mood, you know, I think that, you know, if you've got something that your gut doesn't agree with, that you're putting into your body, the head can respond. I don't know if you've ever found this or ever paid attention to it. I'm not going to try and sell you something, but it is on my list of things to make at some stage in the future, is a food and mood journal. But just write it in the notes in your phone. Like, you probably track your food anyway, which I highly, highly encourage. And just write in your phone, like, what have you eaten and how's your mood? Obviously, for ladies with the cycles and things, I don't know, do guys go through that? I've never actually looked into that. I don't know if there's if moods can change with other things other than just food. But food can be a massive one. And for me, when I was going through my celiac disease diagnosis and I had to eat the equivalent of 6 slices of bread back then per day, and I was married at the time, and my husband said, I can't wait till you can get back off this gluten because I want my wife back. And it really did change my temperament, and it was a very difficult thing to embrace because I just felt like I had PMT like every day of the week. It was just horrible. So journaling, tracking your food and all those kinds of things, I do highly encourage. Now, we're going to talk about the lived experience next, and particularly my diagnosis of Crohn's, because I feel my diagnosis of AS, ankylosing spondylitis, was a very different response. But it was and it wasn't. It was still made me think, right, I've got to go headlong into what can I do? How can I best live with this and going forward? So the lived experience is something that's really emerging in healthcare and the medical world as listening to patients. Now, this is my area that I'm very passionate about. I'm quite an advocate for that because we do all feel very, very different. And much as you can go to, say it's mental health things, you go to your GP or MD, I think it is, if you're from the United States, and you'll say to them, right, I'm struggling with my mental health. They'll give you a prescription and you'll take that tablet. That's a one prescription rule for people. But it is starting to change, okay, because I don't agree with that. We are all so individual, especially when we're talking about the body and the gut. Your gut bacteria is going to be so different to the next person and to me, and we can follow the same diet. We're going to be subject to different things. It doesn't matter what it is. It's affected by so many things, and we know now about just how much of our body is made up of bacteria and what's in the gut, and what affects that. Even how much water you're drinking is going to affect it. We could try and do so many of the same things, but you have your gut flora measured, it's gonna be so different. And it's just, I don't know, it's such an area that scientifically the biology and the microbiology and the makeup of our bodies is going to be so different when we're talking about the digestive system. So the same goes for your experience, your motivation, your attitudes, how you feel day to day. And then all of those things will feed into other stuff like, are you sleeping at night? Because somebody might be a worrier, somebody might absolutely not give a damn. Like, if I don't mention any names, this is fine to tell you this short story. So somebody that I know has Crohn's disease and was diagnosed with colon cancer. And his attitude to it was like, it's all right, they'll cut it out and I'll be fine. And they cut it out and he's now fine. He lives with a stoma and he's okay about that. He feels as though it's given his life back a little bit because now he can go, he's a hiker, he can go on long hikes without worrying about where the toilet is and things like that. So that was his attitude. And yet there's other people that would be totally devastated and destroyed with that news and really struggle to get their head around it. Now, was he masking? I don't know. Was he, pretending everything was fine? Was he faking it till he makes it using law of attraction? I don't know. But that was his story. That was what he was telling himself. And the lived experience is something that we can document now through people like myself. I'm really hoping to take that research further, document that, get it into the right ears. We need to speak to the people who need to hear it. And that's the doctors, the gastroenterologists, the dietitians, the nutritionists. The dietitians and nutritionists are probably on board already with all of that because it's just the way that we kind of think. But again, you can't give somebody a title and say they're all going to be the same. My first gastroenterologist, who I don't have anymore, didn't believe for 1 second that diet would affect my Crohn's disease. And I was so frustrated talking to him. And now we know that is the case. It will massively, the majority of cases, coupled with other things, sometimes coupled with some necessary surgeries and some necessary medication, it will, it can really, really help. Especially if you're undiagnosed celiac like I was. So telling our lived experience and gathering these stories about how we feel, how we live, what is the meaning behind all of this? Do we attach any meaning to it? We may not. We may think, okay, I'm going to give myself some grace. So you used to get a diagnosis and you think, right now I'm allowed to rest. I'm allowed to rest because I'm poorly and I've got this illness. And before you might have been pushing and it might have made it worse. So that could be the story that you're telling yourself. Somebody else might think, right, I need to hit the gym every single day, and then calls themselves, I don't know, a really healthy body or destroying their body. Everyone's story is so different. So we're never going to get to the bottom of it. There's never going to be an answer. There's never going to be, we're going to gather all these lived experiences and the meanings behind it, which is phenomenology, which is an area that I'm very interested in, but probably more so biography as well. Like, what's your story? What did it look like for you? What did you go through? Where are you at now? And could it have been improved? Could the steps that you've walked, could we use your story to improve things for future people? So that's what I find so fascinating. And I'd encourage you, when you're listening to this, just take a few minutes to think about your journey, your story, what you've been through. Are you there yet? Are you out the other side? Is it still a work in progress? I think for myself, I'm kind of where I would really have hoped that I was going to be with my Crohn's disease, certainly. It's my markers have come back undetected. So my fecal calprotectin was under 30. This is probably measured differently in different countries, but that says that, okay, there's no signs of active inflammation, so you're completely in remission. It's been like that for a very long time. My blood markers were good, my CRP, my ESR, all down, all good. My iron's fine, my B12 is fine, I'm absorbing, but I have to really focus on it. If I do the wrong things with my diet, it's a problem. And that's just what works for me. It's going to be different for you, to the next person, to the next person. But also my life has quite dramatically changed and I've been able to give it a little bit more focus. I've been sleeping more lately, which is amazing. So I used to wake up at 4 a.m, wide awake, bing, like that. And now I'm like, was I wide awake? Or was I running on high adrenaline, cortisol, all the other destructive things? I don't know, but I feel good. My skin's improving. I went through, you probably, if you've listened to the other podcasts, I went through the worst year ever in 2023. Really had a difficult time, and then the last 6 months of 2024 was blinking amazing, fabulous. If you haven't read my book, go get my book. It's about well, I've got lots of them, but the last one that I released, which I released just before Christmas, is called The Look an Elephant in the Eye. And it was about my experience of travelling with obviously autoimmunity in Southeast Asia. So how was that for me? What was the story? It's not all about, oh, I ate this and my tummy did that. It's about going through a journey, actually. And it turned out that I've got a lovely writing friend, and she asked me a question. She said, is the elephant in the title relevant? Is the elephant relevant? I mean, what rhymes with elephant? Other than relevant. I love that. I love that for me. And I said to her, well, yes and no, actually. She said, I wondered if it was talking about the elephant in the room. And I said, it wasn't. But when I'm going on future interviews, I'm going to use that. Thank you very much. Because the elephant in the room, I don't want to do too many spoiler alerts because I'd love you to go and get my book from Amazon. But in fact, do that. Can you do that for me? I mean, you can get it on Kindle. Not very much money. It's like $3.99. And if you wanted a physical copy, get in touch with me. There's things in the description. If you want a physical copy, let me know. And probably don't know what the postage would be across to the States, but I could send you. Sorry, not a physical copy, a signed copy, I should have said. Otherwise, you can get a physical copy on Amazon or any of the other outlets. So the elephant in the room that I've discussed is about empty nesting, and I didn't expect, so I was writing the book, I didn't expect it to go in this direction, but it did. So again, you look back at your life story, like, where's it gone? Where is it going? My focus for so long was to be well, to be healthy, to live a fulfilled life, to help others to live a fulfilled life. And all of a sudden, I've stopped and realised when I was travelling last year that my little girl is now a woman and is growing up and becoming independent. And, it was a real realization for me to think, oh, this identification that I've had of being a mother is fading, and how do I navigate that? And it was very significant in the book about different things that I went through while we were travelling and that personal journey, as well as, did I stay well? Blimey hell, I did. You would have thought, oh, deli belly and barley belly and all that sort of stuff. But no, I stayed really well, which I was surprised at, because we talk about the autoimmune protocol, which is low sugars, low starches in a nutshell. Out there, it was very difficult to low sugar, low starch. There was an awful lot of fruit smoothies and rice and more rice everywhere. Fresh fruit, my god, the fruit was incredible out there. It was sweet, it was juicy, it was beautiful. You come back to the UK and try and eat mango, it's not cutting it, it's just not the same. Over there, mango sticky rice with the coconut condensed milk on it, it was delicious. And I was like, yeah, let me give that a shot. I even lost a little bit of weight while I was out there, which I didn't mind that too much. As they encourage you with Crohn's, don't be too skinny, because they want to know that, you're going to, if you have a flare, that you've got a little bit there where you can, keep yourself going. So yeah, it was just, anyway, so that's the book. And it's the first book in a 3-part series. I'm writing the second book now, which is called Whitewashed. I went to work in, I was going to talk to you, wasn't I, about my hotel stuff. So I went to work in 2023 out in Greece. I got a work permit, a work visa to go work in Greece to manage 27 hotels. Not as a hotel manager, but as in managing the staff of the tourism company. So, if that makes sense. So the people that were doing the sort of looking after the holiday makers, I was in charge of 27 hotels for that. Didn't go quite to plan. I'm not going to tell you too much more, because when that book comes out, you can have a read of that one as well. But yeah, that was a really interesting thing. So just briefly, my background came from when I was at school. They started talking to us about, in fact, my qualification that I got at school in nutrition was called food and nutrition. And so some people call it home economics, where you're cooking, but this was more than that. We went right into the nutrition, and I was fascinated to know that if you have got rickets, which is a bendy bone situation, it can be because you've got very low vitamin D. And if you inject vitamin D into your body, I don't mean inject like with an injection, I mean, put it into your body, consume it, then you could in fact get rid of rickets. And then we looked at scurvy and vitamin C, and what we didn't look at was bioavailability and things like that, which now obviously we know. And I was fascinated with that, because it had never ever, and I don't think this is unusual, I can't really blame my parents for not educating me. I don't think it was a particularly common knowledge back then. I'm going back quite a few years. Did we know that what you ate affected your body, or did we not know? So finding that out at school, I was like, this is amazing. I want to do something with this. And I went to a careers advisor at school, and I said, look, I want to do something with this. And they said, that job will be a dietitian, and there's only 4,000 of those jobs in the country. It's really, really hard to get work. I was like, oh, and they really put me off. So I basically was talked out of going down that route. And instead, I went to catering college, and I trained as a chef. I wanted to still work with food and hospitality, and now my nutrition qualification and my background in hospitality and catering has led me to now go looking at hotels to see what labels they put on their food especially at all-inclusive resorts, because you kind of, a lot of the time, the all-inclusive resort might be in the middle of nowhere. So the only thing you can eat is what they're putting out on the buffet. And if they're not labelled up correctly, or they don't care that you're gluten-free or low sugar, low starch, whatever, then you've got a problem. And for myself, it was very much, that was born through when I had my celiac diagnosis. The next trip I went on, again, was when I was married, was to Egypt. And I walked back to the breakfast table with my shoulders, heavy shoulders. And my husband said to me, "You okay?" He said, "You look like devastated." I said, "I don't know what I can eat up there. I was hoping for egg and bacon, and there's no bacon." I'd forgotten that it was a Muslim country. But now I've trained my eye to look differently, and I know they do something called beef bacon out there, and it's a really good alternative. And they do egg, and I can tolerate egg if it's got some cheese in it, and if it's an omelette, maybe with some butter on the top. I'm not a fan of egg, but I've trained myself to eat these certain things that I know is going to be good for my gut. And without that knowledge, I would have really, really struggled, and I'd have probably been put off from travelling or going to hotels or whatever. So now I'm on this mission to go and have a look at different food labelling, who caters for who and what can we do about it? Can we change it? I think it's going to be very difficult to change it in hotels abroad, because it would mean speaking to every different tourism board. Very difficult thing to do. What I have found is the TUI Blue hotels, which not many of you listen from the UK, but TUI Blue hotels are UK based. They label their food pretty well. It's not flawless, but pretty well. And they do cater for gluten-free diners, obviously vegan, and dairy-free I find difficult to find. And I know a lot of people are dairy-free too. But yeah, so just been looking at that and bringing it all together, and it's very exciting. And it's something that I really, really love to do. Now, recently I went to Egypt to look at 4 different hotels. And I really noticed that you get what you pay for. If you stay in a budget hotel, there'll be no labelling. They will laugh at you if you ask for something, and this really did upset me. I went to the bar and I asked for a Coke Zero, and I don't really like Diet Coke, but I asked for a Coke Zero, and they went, "No, we haven't got any." And I text back home to my son, who also works on a bar part-time, and he said, "Well, it's not hard, is it? They can just go and get some." And so I said to them, "Can you get some?" Next time I went to the bar, and they said, "No, we haven't got any." Simple as that. I said, "Well, I need something with no sugar," and they pointed to the water fountain, and they said, "You can have water." And I was like, oh God. So I must have really looked unimpressed, walked away, and the next time I went back to the bar a few days later, the same barman was there and very sarcastically looked at me. He cocked his head to the side and went, "Good morning," like that. And I said, "Have you got any Coke Zero?" And he said, "Good morning," again. And I was annoyed because that was just unnecessary. And he went out the back, and bless him, he made an effort, but he came back with a bottle of Slimline tonic. He said, "You can have this." And I was like, "No, thank you." I mean, goodness me. So yeah, so it was tricky. But then I would go to the other. It wasn't even the top end hotel actually. My top end hotel had the same, but it was the sort of second down from the top end hotel. Walked to the bar, said to the man, "Do you have a Coke Zero?" And he just went, "Yeah," and just picked up this bottle. I've just written a piece about this recently actually. Picked up this bottle, and he said, I wasn't sure that it was Coke Zero because it had a red label and they look very similar, don't they? So I picked it up, and I was sort of looking at it, and he went, yeah, look. And he showed me really nicely that it was Coke Zero. And I went, "Oh, amazing." I said, "Can I have a slice of something in it?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, and I was thinking lemon or lime. He said, "What about orange?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And it was the most amazing drink because I was just so grateful for it. But, you know, it's important to try and convey these things, and I think I'm probably going to, in 2025, my blogs that I write about travel are going to be more tweaked to dietary requirements for those of us who've got health considerations. And yeah, I'd really appreciate your feedback on that. Like, are you interested in more vloggy style things, or would you prefer to see where I've gone that's got things where you can eat gluten-free? I mean, I'm pretty close to London. I'm really interested in speaking to the London hotels to see who does what, how do they do it. You know, with my scientist hat on, I may be able to get in the kitchen. I am a qualified chef as well, which is interesting. Get into the kitchen, go and have a look at their practices. You know, what do they do to ensure cross-contamination isn't a thing. So yeah, I've got quite a lot there coming up, and it's exciting, and it fills me with great passion for helping other people, and we're really making great inroads now, and I want to make more inroads to go in that direction, and just hopefully make better practices out there. On that note, I need to edit a video. It's now 9:45 in the morning. The sun is coming round. The frost is doing its thing. It's beautiful out there. Beautiful. It's -4. Too cold for me to go for a walk. So I'll sit here and edit my next video, which I'd love you to come and see on YouTube. And yeah, it's been great spending this time with you. Thank you so much for being here. Do reach out and let me know if there's an area you'd like me to cover on this podcast. Now that we've got this pressure of being in the top 15 Crohn's disease podcasts, I would love to hear from you, as always. And I will leave some bits and bobs in the show notes where you can find me, where you can reach out to me, and yeah, just let me know how you're doing. So I love to hear from you. I love to hear if this has been at all helpful in any way, or if it's helped you to feel less alone, because I think sometimes it's hard to find a community. And what I don't like to do at all, and this is not meant as an insult for people who do it, but I don't like to on the negative side of what we're dealing with. But I'm real, so I don't want to all the time be like, you know what I'm saying. I'd rather we try and like, what can we do about this? How can we press forward? How can we make the best of this situation? So that's the thread that will be run through this. If you're going to expect to come here and hear nothing but moaning, you're in the wrong place. So I don't know, you can find plenty of that elsewhere. A lot of people feel it's unjust and they're angry. I understand and recognise that. That is part of the lived experience that I'm looking to gather. But it isn't just a negative Nancy whinge fest over here. You know, with practical steps, what can we do? How can we improve our lives? And like I say, in this podcast, I would encourage you to think about something that would take you away from your illness for a minute. And for me, that's journaling, or like I say, writing this little poem that I wrote this morning. And yeah, so anyway, sending you all of my love. I hope you are well and feeling well, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for listening, and you take care. Bye-bye for now. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. It would be amazing to have you here. Or, of course, you can listen to the podcast on all of the usual platforms. All right, bye.